Oh, this is a standard setup. Canon EF 28mm f1.8 electrophysics astroscope and T3I, which is the DSLR. This is the evening of July 13th, 2026. It's a 90-minute clip. We're looking at Vega and Lyra, but now we're panning over to the right, which is sort of south to southeast, and we're looking for transient phenomena. There's something interesting. That was probably a plane, but it's ambiguous. I have to keep saying this. I live 35 miles northwest of New York City, and that's definitely a transient phenomena. What we got here is a lot of sky glow, not only from New York City. Right now I was playing with the ISO to see what would give me a better picture. So I got all the sky glow from New York City and all the development between me and New York City. So about 25 degrees up to the sky is pretty bad. And even up towards the zenith, it never really gets super dark. Doesn't get super dark. Nope, not at all. This is an accurate representation of how dark it gets. You can see the stars. But I can only see these bright stars. So if you could see 50 stars here, maybe I can only see 6 or 7 because it's sky glow. Look at all the stuff flitting around. Some of it is airplanes, there's no doubt about it. But a lot of it is Starlink or AWS LEO or GPS, and there could be other things too. You don't think the Ruskies? Look at that. See how that started out dim, had a bright flash, and then it got dim again? I see that a lot. It's not common, but you see it a lot. And you see how sometimes you get 4 or 5 crossing at once? Those are all Starlink or LEO or something, near Earth orbit objects. And it's only going to get more pronounced. This is just the beginning. They want to add thousands and thousands and more. There's a little gap there because I pressed the stop and start button. So, sometimes you'll get that. All these bright guys, these are all airplanes. But notice how that one airplane had a dim one following it. So there's all sorts of weird stuff to see. Of course, if you live next to a big city, you're going to need binoculars and keep scanning the sky back and forth and picking these things up. Now, 28mm on this rig it's wide angle. It's a nice field of view. But still, it's not super wide. And if I want to capture what's happening in this section of sky, I pan left and right. Because if I just leave the camera in this position, I could be missing something over in the other position. But then as I pan in that direction, I could be missing something from the position I was just at. But you can still see, even panning around, there's 2, 3. Wasn't that interesting? That was interesting. That's very interesting. Very interesting. If those are planes, that's still very interesting. Yeah, look at all the dim stuff. Dim stuff means small or far away. Bright stuff means closer or bigger. So okay, you just see 3 or 4 at a time, varying brightnesses. It's only going to get worse. There's going to become a time where you're going to see more of these near Earth orbiting objects than your stars, especially if you live next to a city. They want to put these giant mirrors. Imagine your deck umbrella, but instead of made in some fabric, it's made out of mylar, that aluminumized mylar, like a space blanket. It's supposed to be like 60 meters by 60 meters. They want to have 50,000 of them in orbit. And this way they could beam light down to the Earth in case there's like a big football game or some sort of a mass disaster. They could light the place up at night. Now they're only going to do one as a proof of concept, but people are fighting it because they say there's going to be too many. Bright as the full moon, they say. And these satellites are only getting bigger. Starlink started out like very small, like 500 pounds or something like that, and now they're cracking 2,000 pounds because they want them to be more they carry more fuel. That's definitely a plane. They want to carry more fuel. They want to be able to do more stuff. Now, they're saying, Starlink is saying that, it's just for communication, but they also want to put data centers in space, distributed data centers. That's why that's an airplane. That's why the satellites are getting, that's another airplane. So the data centers are going to be each individual satellite, and the bigger they are, then the more they can communicate with the Earth and to each other, right? And they want to fight. Nobody wants data centers in their backyard. No one wants data centers in space. But that's an airplane. How are you going to buy your cheap plastic crap off of Temu or Alibaba? They got to keep track of that somehow. Now, I've captured airplanes even with a 50 millimeter, and it was so close and big you could tell it was an airplane, right? So some airplanes, some jets are big. Even if they're a mile away, they still look big, right? But if they're 10 or 20 miles away, they're small. Now, some planes, they carry big-ass lights. You see the big lights. That's it. Those are airplanes, without a doubt, right? That they need the big-ass lights when they're flying transcontinental or whatever. So that's what's got me, thinking, if this plane, look at how many's on the screen right now. There's like 5 or 6 of them on the screen at one time. Very dim, but they were there. And those, you can't tell if they're airplanes or not. All right, so planes got these big lights for landing and taking off, but after they get to a certain height and they're going to a certain far away from the airport, they shut them off. They don't need them, but you still see these planes that come in dim, get bright, and get dim again. Now, satellites could do that. Maybe that's when they turn their motor on and they get extra bright. I don't know. I'm just presenting this to you. This is a very bad night. It was supposed to be super clear, but this haze started to come in from Canada, from the forest fires there. And then this is the night of the 13th, and then the 14th became so hazy, the sky turned white for a while. But then in the evening, the sky turned blue again, and then it wasn't so bad. But then, we got some days where it got dark from this fire, and the sky turned orange from this being filtered. So those are the things you got to put up with. So you get a clear night, you go out and you shoot. Look at it. This is a fast forward time lapse, because the clip would be 90 minute long, and I shrunk it down to 15 minutes. See, that's Vega and Lyra. And I'm scanning around Vega and Lyra. There's Vega, the constellation Lyra. Below Vega is Cygnus. I forget what's to the right and south of it. But you can look at a star chart and just line up the stars. These are real stars. And even these very faint, dim ones. I should be able to see those by eye, but no, not there. They're just not there. Sky glow. Haze from industrial fallout, a forest fire. I'm 35 miles northwest of New York City, but Canada, where these fires are, might be 1,000 miles away. So that must be some big, giant forest fire to, make the sky hazy and cloudy. Now, it only had just started, so it wasn't too bad, but I didn't see the deep stars, dim stars that I usually see on a really clear night. And it's the same thing with the transient phenomena. If they're above the haze, and the haze is going to block them if they're very dim. That bright star is Vega. That little rhombus to the bottom right, that's the rest of Lyra. And those are the other stars surrounding it. Now you're seeing all these things moving around. What was that? I don't know. It could have been a lightning bug, but it has to be a far away lightning bug. When a lightning bug is close by, it looks like a big orb, giant blob of light. But sometimes I notice when they're far away, you can mistake them for an airplane because they just go in a straight line. Is that an airplane? Could be. I didn't have my binoculars with me. So then panning takes up all my spare time. And it's like I say, sky glow is just so depressing to see the sky glow. I mean, it obliterates the night sky. You see a handful of stars. Oh, and you got to use special equipment like this to see the stars you would see with your eye, which is, but that's progress. That's the modern society we live in. Now, as usual, I'm really looking for meteors, fireballs, and bolides. And when a 28mm f1.8, I see some very dim meteors. A meteor only lasts 1 or 2 frames of this video, so if you're skipping 3 frames or 4 frames, chances are you're going to miss them. I haven't really seen any that I want to clip out and append to the end like a real snorter. You know, like, wow, look at that. Nope, haven't seen it. If I go out right after sunset and I end before midnight, that's not the best time to look for meteors, but, you know, I would have to go to bed at sunset, go to sleep, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then look for meteors in the morning. Oh, another thing is the bugs are really bad. The biting bugs are bad. Mosquitoes. Oh, it got so bad I had to spray for it. That's how bad it is. I have no locusts. I heard a locust, one locust. It got to 90 degrees. One locust came out, made a couple of chirps, and that was it. There's no cicadas, no crickets, no locusts. Not too many birds either. I don't know what's going on. I guess the environment's being destroyed. Look at the crisscross. Imagine seeing crisscrosses like that all the time, because that's what's going to happen. In a way, by documenting this, I'm saying this is a time and a place where you could pan across the sky and for like a minute or two not see anything. But imagine if you, maybe 2 or 3 or 5 years from now, the whole sky is full of crisscrossing satellites. It might be interesting, but you know, it's for people who are trying to do science and look at the sky, it might be disturbing. I take still pictures of the deep sky, and yeah, I think satellite trails add something interesting, although real astronomers consider it a nuisance. But hey, you know, but look at them all. And this wasn't that great a night. I mean, if it was a really clear night, it was really dark, there would have been seen a lot more, because there's always a lot more dim ones than there are bright ones. Now notice, like, as the evening goes on, the airplanes get less and less, but these little dots, they really don't go away. You know, maybe for a while around midnight, like half hour before midnight to half hour after midnight, because the sun's being blocked by the Earth, you don't see too many, because the satellites, we see them by reflected sunlight. Although they're supposed to have motors, and when they turn the motor on, I'm sure that's infrared, and this thing would pick that up, infrared. And these dots, most of the dots, even with a telephoto lens of 200mm, they're still just dots. So unless it's an airplane that's close enough that you can see by eye, which you can during the day, they're just dots. That's all I can say. And it's never ending. And there's going to be more, lots more. I'll keep you posted.